Over the weekend, in the early hours of Saturday, that is on the 10th of May, the Indian Air Force jets rode across the border, unleashing precision strikes on Pakistani military bases. The operation was swift, targeted and devastating, crippling radar sites and damaging runways in what Indian sources later described as hellfire. But the path to this dramatic escalation and the sudden halt that followed is a story that unfolded across secure phone lines, back-channel diplomacy, and an urgent sense that the region stood on the edge of a deeper and deadlier conflict. It all began with a phone call. On the night of the 9th of May, US Vice President J.D. Vance telephoned Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The message he delivered was stark. US intelligence had picked up alarming indicators of a high probability of a full-scale escalation if the situation continued into the weekend. Pakistan's attempt earlier that day to strike 26 Indian locations, which is a sharp increase from the usual 8 to 10 sites, had already set off alarms in global capitals. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's response was unambiguous. If Pakistan continued on this path, India's reply would be harder, deeper and bigger. And just hours later, Indian airstrikes hit Pakistani air bases at Rafiki, Murid, Chaklala, Rahim Yar Khan, Sukur and Chunian. Radar installations at Pasroor and Sialkot Aviation Base were also taken out. Particularly notable was the damage to the Noor Khan Air Base in Rawalpindi, which is a key strategic facility. According to sources, it was this Indian retaliation on the 10th of May which exposed a significant gap between the two countries' military capabilities that triggered panic in Islamabad. That day, Pakistani Army Chief General Asim Munir reached out to top US officials, including US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Their message: Pakistan was ready to talk. Rubio, in turn, reached out to Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. India, Jaishankar confirmed, had already made clear through military channels that it was open to de-escalation. In fact, on the 7th of May, immediately after India struck 9 terror camps in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, the Indian Director General of Military Operations, that is DGMO Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, had conveyed that India's targets were carefully chosen and not directed at Pakistani military assets. He also indicated that if Pakistan wanted to initiate dialogue, India would respond. Still, the Pakistan military continued its attacks for 3 more days. On the 10th of May, it launched its most aggressive assault yet, targeting areas as far as Sirsa in Haryana. But this final gamble backfired. India's counter-strike that night not only hit back harder but signaled a new doctrine, that Pakistan's terror infrastructure would now come with a direct cost. By the afternoon of the 10th of May, Pakistan's DGMO Major General Kashif Abdullah contacted Lieutenant General Ghai. At 3:30 p.m., the two military leaders spoke. They agreed to halt firing and military operation, what's being called a stopping of action, though India is careful not to label it as a formal ceasefire. Behind this decision was India's firm 3-pronged strategy: political, military and psychological deterrence. Following the 22nd of April terror attack in Pahalgaon that killed 26 people, mostly tourists, India's leadership from Modi to Jaishankar to National Security Advisor Ajit Doval had quietly warned global partners that a response was imminent. The Indian government also signaled its resolve by putting the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, arguing that blood and water cannot flow together. Militarily, India departed from its past strategies, such as the 2016 Uri surgical strikes and the 2019 Balakot strikes, by hitting not just camps but the symbolic headquarters of terror groups such as Muridke, that is Lashkar-e-Taiba's, Bawalpur and Muzaffarabad that belong to Jaish-e-Mohammed. Psychologically, it was meant to shatter the assumption that Pakistan-based terrorists could act without consequences. A senior official said the message was clear: no business as usual, no safe spaces, no impunity. Of course, while the US intervention helped push Pakistan to the negotiating table, Delhi is wary of Washington taking credit. US President Donald Trump, who was the first to publicly announce a ceasefire and later offer to mediate, hasn't been well received in Delhi's strategic circles. One source said the only issue is getting Pakistan to vacate Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. For now, Operation Sindoor is not being declared over. India remains on high alert, and sources insist that this is not a return to the 2021 ceasefire already violated by Pakistan in recent months. Instead, the Indian government sees this as the beginning of a new normal, where any act of terror will meet with a calibrated, visible and punishing response diplomatically, militarily and psychologically. And if bullets come from across the border, Delhi has made it clear they will be answered with shells. For more updates on Operation Sindoor and the ceasefire talks between India and Pakistan, stay tuned to the official YouTube channel of the Indian Express.